Okay, and then we step into the live stream.
How will I bring this up? Because I won't remember these. That's like 3 things to remember. Stuff.
Three things.
Are we ready? Are we ready? No. You're speaking. You better be ready. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us at our Christmas special San Diego Accessibility Inclusive Design Meetup. Or holiday special, I should say. I'm being uninclusive in my holidays. I am Harris Schneiderman, and this is my co-host, Christopher Land. And tonight we're going to be covering a number of topics. The talks will include stuff about inclusive design, UX research, and VR and AR for accessibility. I'm actually really excited for all three of the talks from some awesome people. And we're always looking for speakers at upcoming events, so please volunteer. We don't want to have to force anybody to speak, but it'd be great to get some volunteers. And then him and I have to fill in when people don't volunteer. So you don't want to hear me talking any more than I already am.
Okay, and the thank you to our sponsors, DQ. They provide accessibility consulting, software, and services, including Axe Dev Tools, which you're the product manager for, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, 1 billion downloads, 3 commas.
What is the 3 commas thing?
A billion. Tres comas, yeah.
Oh, I see. Does DQ still have job openings at the moment?
Yeah. Go to dq.com/careers.
Okay, I was off today, and these notes have been poorly updated. Yeah, it's dq.com. Check them out. Another sponsor we have is Evinced. Evinced provides software tools to build accessibility into the development process throughout the coding and testing pipeline. They've got some really great mobile accessibility tools out there. That's evinced.com. Thank you to Red Door. This is where we are at, Red Door Interactive. They're awesome for hosting us. The space is cool. And they also provided the food and drinks, which is amazing. So thank you. Do you want? I would like to hear just a little bit more about what you guys do here.
Yes. Hello, everyone. On behalf of Red Door Interactive, I want to say welcome for joining us. I'm Nathan. I am an associate DevOps engineer here. Very heavily involved in accessibility and focused on that. But we are super excited to host you tonight. For the speakers, we do have, if anybody's interested, we have like a lapel mic. If you do not want to hold the mic, so please just let me know, and we can try to get that set up for you. And then I'm going to pass it to Loren, who is our talent manager, to talk through some roles that we may have open.
Hey, thank you, Nate. Hello, everyone. I'm Loren. I am the talent manager here at Red Door. So basically, I support all of recruiting in every department. So anything from creative, client services, data, UX, UI, kind of all the above. Right now, we have 2 active open roles, which you can definitely take a look at on our website. One is a social and content strategist, and then we have a senior copywriter that we're looking for. So please feel free to add me on LinkedIn, keep in touch with me. I would love to network and hopefully chat with you all in the future. Yes, Sam? Reddoor.biz. There you go. And careers. Oh, and also, actually, I do want to mention, we do have, I support everything from interns up to VP level. So we have a full-blown internship program that we run in the summer. It's from June to September. If you go on our website, we have a little click box that you can apply directly. And then if for some reason we have a position posted that is not within your wheelhouse, we have what we call a talent bench. So please apply to that. Basically, just kind of keeps your information in a database that I maintain. So therefore, you know, if and when we have something open that you're looking for that caters to your expertise, I can then go ahead and reach out and we can kind of start that interview process. And I'm open for questions while I'm here. Yes, Franny. Yes, Franny is on that team, so she will be your go-to person in terms of like what that day-to-day looks like if you do have questions. And thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And that segues into our next section, but before that, I'm going to go into a rabbit hole. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, I believe, I will be giving a webinar on an accessibility browser extension that I work on. So I will come talk to me after the talks if you want to get a link for that. And also, my company has what's called AXCon coming up in February, which is a free to attend virtual accessibility conference. So highly recommend signing up. You can get access to recordings afterwards if you can't make all the talks. But back to careers. This is where we like to do an open discussion of who has jobs other than what was just mentioned for Red Door and DQ and Evinced. Anyone who works for a company that's hiring, if you want to raise your hand and let us know what you're looking for, and anyone who's looking for work, if you want to, feel free to make a pitch here.
I put this together. Whoa. Check 1, 2. So yeah, I put this together just
nice.
in case if anybody wanted something visual, and if they have their phone out, that's my resume. But I am currently looking for an opportunity in software engineering. I'm mainly focused in the front end, but I have full stack experience. And I recently just took my CPAC, so spent countless hours studying for that. Won't give the results back for a couple months, But I'd like to mention that as well. And I'm also cybersecurity minded. So, with the threats that are around these days, it's more important than ever to make sure your code is secure. So not only accessible, but secure. So I'm open to any opportunities. Again, well, not any opportunities, but mostly front-end opportunities. This is my first time pitching this out in front of people.
Anything?
So, thank you. But yeah, thank you.
Anyone hiring or looking?
Hello. My name is Lana Arsenis, and I'm one of the people presenting today. I'm actually currently a UX designer and developer, so full stack and everything like that. But I recently just graduated from UC San Diego, which I currently work for, and in about 6 to 7 months, I'll be looking for any other opportunities that relate to UX or front end or back end developing, because those are my passions. And I'm really passionate about accessible design, so if anyone knows of anything around, just hit me up, I guess, or come talk to me after presentations. Yeah, thank you.
Last call. All right, well, with that, perfect segue into our first speaker, Lana Arsenis. She's a recent grad from UC San Diego, as we just mentioned, in interdisciplinary computing. As a driving force behind UX design and marketing at the Hub Basic Needs Center, Lana is passionate about crafting innovative solutions for open access education and inclusive design in underserved communities. At UC San Diego Library, she co-led and mentored a dynamic cohort of student designers, digitizing resources and reshaping information architecture. She hopes to pursue UX that transcends traditional boundaries, where UX is synonymous with positive change and inclusivity. Take it away, Lana. This talk is titled "The Power of Accessibility and Inclusive Design on Marginalized Communities in Education." Yeah. Woo. Or I can just be the mic stand holder. I think we got it clipped.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you mind holding this? Thank you. Appreciate it. There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Hiya. So my topic for today is on the power of accessibility and inclusive design, especially regarding their crucial roles in UX for marginalized communities in education, which is primarily the work I do at UC San Diego. So yeah, today I'm honored to delve into a topic that lies not only at the heart of UX design, but the broader landscape of social change. And it's like the intersection of accessibility, inclusive design, and activism. So these pillars are not only essential for UX, in my opinion, but addressing and empowering basic needs and rights in marginalized communities. And to me, UX is not only about empowerment and not only about functionality, but using activism as a driving force behind it in the creative processing so we can ensure that our work resonates and uplifts diverse groups. So just a little about me to like contextualize this talk I have. Who am I? I consider myself an advocate first and foremost. I'm a first generation grad student that majored in interdisciplinary computing at UC San Diego. I just graduated over the summer. Yeah, so kind of new at all this, but I've been working in UX for about 3 or 4 years, and I'm also a queer Filipino Vietnamese UX designer and developer, and super proud of that. And I'm also a proud grandparent. Fun fact. So yeah, so here's where I've been. I've been a student lead for UX design cohort at UC San Diego in the technology and digital experience team at UC San Diego Library, which deals a lot with digitizing resources for students on and off campus, and that often means that I'm working with databases, I'm like digitizing resources by hand and making them accessible for students, and then oftentimes I worked on the website, which is people's like first entry point into doing research. And I'm currently a lead for UX design and web development at the Hub Basic Needs Center on campus. So I've been there for a little over 2 years now, and it's my last year, so I'm sad. But yeah, what I do is I help link students with the Triton Food Pantry, CalFresh, and the Food Recovery Network, which helps combat food waste. And we also help students combat things like housing insecurity and food insecurity, as well as like helping educate about financial wellness, especially with the current like economy and everything like that. So yeah, I do a little bit of design for them. I do a little bit of web development, coding, but I'm really passionate about accessibility and inclusive design. And those are our little mascots there too, little fruits and vegetables. Just thought it would be cute to have them. But yeah, so let's embark on a journey transcending pixels and wireframes, because I'm here to talk about the profound impact that design can have on society and the responsibilities we have as developers and designers. I feel that our role extends beyond crafting, researching, and prototyping, and that we're advocates for change. So these are some of the key points I wanted to talk about. The first one is empowerment. And these are just some things I've just like learned as I've gone in my UX journey. One of them being like how we can empower communities. Who is in our local communities? Where can we foster opportunities and partnerships that empower others? Because a lot of what I've done is learning to communicate with people that I've never met and people who've had very different experiences than me. And that's often led to like some of the best work and collaborations. Another point I want to touch on is breaking down barriers, taking the time to understand obstacles that communities face, and how that factors into design, because that can often affect the outcome, especially if communities are marginalized or disadvantaged in different ways than others. And the last point I want to touch about is communities, reframing this idea of like user experience into community experiences. It's just something that like me and my cohort have been doing lately. It just seems a little more human to recognize that people are people and not just, you know, a little dot on a screen. And yeah, so who's in your neighborhood? Good to know. Empowerment is all about intent and the steps forward to achieve goals. And in my experience in education, this means breaking down barriers to success, and we define this as well-being, opportunities, and open access to information. So it's important to consider when making something what communities are being disempowered, especially the edge cases, and where can opportunities be made. And over this past 2022-2023 academic year, I've been gathering demographics and statistics across all of the basic needs services on the UC San Diego campus. So I'll be like sharing a little bit about that throughout. Something I found interesting was the metrics and the sort of disproportionate access that our services seem to have. We primarily seem to be serving Asian American students and Hispanic Latino students, but we don't have a lot of African American students and undocumented students, which there's actually a really big portion of those on campus. So that's something that we've been trying to focus on this year. So that's just there as an example. And then on my next topic of breaking down barriers. So these are like a couple examples of like things I've run into. I'm sure these are a little bit relatable in some way, in one way or another, but breaking down barriers to me means targeting diverse perspectives, and not in the sense that it's like a sort of checkbox, but a key to sustainable UX and service product design in general. From research to ideation, activism can be challenging in that we always have to like be educated, we have to question norms and biases, and redefine what's possible, and that often means like a lot of research and a lot more talking to people and being, I guess, like open to learning some really uncomfortable things. So, yeah. A little bit of a story time. Since I work in basic needs and like the realm of education, there's a lot of bureaucracy, especially in the higher education world, and that's super challenging in that you have to ask permission to do a lot of things and get funding. And that means I have to like gather statistics like what I just showed you to really like hammer in the point that people are in need and things need to be accessible for everybody, not just like your general population, but like all of your edge cases and things like that, because yeah, they exist and they shouldn't be invisible. Yeah. So yeah, story time. We had a lack of funding over the pandemic, so that was really rough, and then that led to us having to pretty much revamp the entire basic needs service that we had, from being like an in-person service to being something that's remote, and that meant like we had to like hand deliver things to people, like food and like personal hygiene products, or like the bulk of what we provided, and doing like one-on-one appointments to people. And that like, although that was challenging, that led us to like understanding that there's like still ways around these obstacles and there's still a way to make change. And then in terms of inequitable resources, it came out recently that our Associated Student Body President was misappropriating like $16K worth of funds. Yeah, tea is being spilled. And that's something that we've been really vocal about with our chancellor and things like that, just because it's just not right that so much of our tuition goes to funds not being used for, you know, the needs of students and people who are at a disadvantage. So yeah, I'm gonna share a couple of metrics that I've collected. So yeah, as I mentioned, accessibility and inclusive design are the bedrock of an empathetic approach and can lead to empowerment of individuals regardless of ability and where they come from. And often the digital landscape really challenges these communities, especially when they're at a disadvantage. So accessibility and inclusive design shouldn't be a checkbox or a quirk or like a temporary feature, in my opinion, but something to make normal and something that should be like the main part of why we do what we do. So I found that 49.7% of the students that we serve on campus were people of color that fall into, you know, this realm of being African American, undocumented students, international, and otherwise. And 56.2% of the students that we served over the past 2 years were female, which I found very astonishing, but it really makes sense, like, you know, considering the world we live in. And then 64% were first-generation students, just like me. And over the past year, we've served a total of 53,000 students, including 9,000 new ones, and all of the different services that I've been working on making more accessible. And, you know, since that, we've seen that 586% of our usage has gone up in the past year, which I think is like really amazing because before I came on, there wasn't really like a UX design team or like an accessibility team on campus. It was basically just like me and my coworkers, we were like the first cohort in the library and then the first cohort in the Basic Needs Center. That's in 2 years. Yeah. So change is happening, but it's yeah. But even before I was there, it was like a process. And at least now we have like a committee, so that's nice. Baby steps. So yeah, 55,000 pounds of food was recovered over the past year because we went ahead and sort of like redid the way that our services were being offered, and we just resecured funding. We got more students on board. We made training more available, and we tried to like make our services more accessible in that we were trying to have more distribution days and things like that, more hours, and that of course like requires a bigger team and lots of student talent. And then, yeah, something really cool that I worked on was this tech lending program, which unfortunately is currently like being expanded. In other words, like they're trying to get more funding to like get more Chromebooks out, but we had a beta last year, which was like really monumental for low-income students because nearly all of these computers that were being lended out through the library were being used, like checked out constantly. And then, yeah, over the pandemic, I was also responsible for like helping digitize all of these like library guides and resources by the thousands, because I guess, yeah, since I didn't really have like a quality assurance team or like an accessibility team, that kind of like went over their head when introducing another, I don't know, a new database or new system that they had, and it's a long story. Yeah, not to get off track here, but yeah, and then this is like a little bit of some metrics I got from looking over like specifically our website and mobile analytics for the Basic Needs Center. So what's really fascinating to me is that in a single month, we average about 37,000 sessions and 67,000 page views. And the average session is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then when comparing it to like before I started working there, it was probably around 5 minutes to find what you needed and probably like half of the sessions and page views. So literally the website wasn't usable. So, I mean, all this to say that when you persevere and start making incremental change, that's when the magic happens and the real work begins. And just sharing and celebrating some of these metrics, like I want to just say that like change is possible in the realm of like technology and UX design. And yeah, it's really important. And then my last point on communities, I found that like networking and sort of like meeting people outside of the okay. Lovely. Oh. Is there any way we can go back? At the very beginning. Oh yeah, let's do it all over again, guys. So, yeah, basically what I was trying to say here is that meeting new people is really important because when you meet new people, you can learn a lot from others that aren't in your field. And oftentimes, like, the work we do intersects with what they do. So, yeah, for example, like, I'm a part of my local KP organization, the Kaibagang Filipina, and there's a lot of women in there working in tech and in STEM. So that's been really great. And we also have a design community on campus that I coordinate and help do design-a-thons for, so that's always been really fun. And then thanks to like the work I've done and been involved with, I've been able to like really get into like basic needs work, and that stretches across like all UC campuses and even like outside of education as well. So if anyone's like ever like looking for a way to get involved, like there's your go-to. And then, yeah, networking outside of UX has led me to like meeting a lot of undocumented students. I've gotten to like help edit podcasts with them. And then we also have a women's center that's really close by, a Black Resource Center, the Raza, which deals with Latina students, and AAPI groups. And that's also led to like meeting lots and lots of wonderful people who are able to share like, diverse experiences and some like really heartfelt stories. And that really like motivates me personally to like do what I do and to like continue like learning about others. And yeah, so in conclusion for this slide, you'll never know who you might meet because I've met a doctor without borders, an immigration lawyer, and a writer who I actually work a lot with in my work. And yeah, now we're done.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. La, la, la. Oh, can you pull up her graph, please? Do you want the stand-up mic? You got jokes? Okay. Um, Chris Angel is a senior user experience researcher with Amazon, and she will share how she finds hard to reach audiences for new product development. Well, at Hopscotch Labs, Chris worked with the city and airport on key projects that they had to get right, potholes and wayfinding, and with SC Johnson Ziploc on new kitchen products. Her work has led her around the world. Chris is an entrepreneur and UX community organizer focused on human-centered design and generative research. Her talk, Finding Hard to Reach Populations.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. I work in research. I get to talk to people all day, every day, and learn something brand new, which is really cool. Some of the challenges, though, is finding those individuals. Because while everybody here is really fascinating, what we talk about typically matters for the customers that I'm working with. And so today I'm going to talk about how do you find those individuals that matter for your projects so that you're designing and you're building the right experience. A couple of things about me. Because I'm a researcher, I have a really weird background. I am currently a senior UX researcher for Amazon, but I also have my own research consultancy. I have 2 masters, one as design research, and so that's where I learned how to do all these really crazy problem-solving things of trying to figure out what is this problem that we're actually solving, and who needs to be in the room so that we can get to the heart of what we need to solve. Because it's usually a reframe of the question that you think you need to have answered. The other master's is an MBA, highly recommended. It's worth it. And I know some of you have just gone through it. It's painful. The desks are really small, and the math is real. It sucks. As a San Diegan, I've been here 10 years, and prior to that, I've lived all over the world. I've been fortunate to get to work in design in Germany, work in research in Italy, meet customers in India and China, do all sorts of weird things that I never thought I'd be able to do when I thought that I wanted to be an artist as a kid. And it helps to be curious. It helps to be willing to talk to people, but it also helps to be able to sit back and observe what's taking place in the world. When I started my career, I started in graphic design in New York. I thought I was doing some amazing work. I worked at this small ad agency that actually did more design. And so we were designing all these brand new magazines for the world. The goal of the magazine was really to sell the ads and less to sell and write and design the magazine, but that got me into doing some really interesting design work. The challenge, though, was every time we had a brand new magazine to design, I had to do all the research into who was the customer for this magazine. And they didn't give me any ideas. So they wanted to do a music magazine. And with that music magazine, they had some articles that they were writing, but I didn't know any of those bands. And then they were out doing the photo shoots, but I didn't get to go along to learn about the musicians. And so I was kind of stuck in my own little world trying to figure out, okay, how do I design this magazine for an audience that I know nothing about? It was super frustrating. But at the time, that's how all design worked. Logos, magazines, marketing. You're lucky if you got a design brief from your client. At that time, the agencies hired somebody who fit the profile of the customer that was going to be using the product in the hopes that you could design for yourself. The greatest way to actually make a living at this. And so, a couple of years into this life in New York, I realized that no, I really need to go back to school. I need to figure out how to get ahead of the problem. Learn more about who the customer is. And that's where those masters come in. At about the same time, Haiti had an earthquake, and it was devastating. And what was even more devastating was that the World Bank, who funded a lot of the buildings in Haiti, went in to try to help and try to figure out, okay, how many people were injured, how many buildings are no longer there, and they couldn't get to that information because the information was on a paper map in someone's desk drawer. And that desk drawer was in a building that had collapsed. And this is devastating. This entire country was ruined by this earthquake. And then in 2015, the same thing happened in Nepal. And what we learned was that those maps that they had just digitized were on a thumb drive and very inaccessible to the people who needed those maps to try to figure out how many people were potentially at risk or in these homes, in these buildings that collapsed. And for each one of these types of buildings that existed in the countries, you had a better success rate of finding someone alive if they were in a cement building versus in a low-strength masonry building. So basically a cement block building. But they didn't have that information because it was on that thumb drive. And how do you get to that thumb drive when there's nothing left in the country? And so that's where I came in and the World Bank came in. The World Bank wanted to take everything that was on those paper maps in the desk drawer and get it out, get it into the ether, and help everybody have that accessible when you need it and how you need it. And my job was to actually talk to the map makers, talk to the individuals who were going to be using those maps, and try to figure out what did that software need to look like? How did we need to tag different types of information? How were they planning to use it? Where were they going to use it? What tools were at their disposal to use it at the time that they needed it? And the challenge I had was, okay, great. How do I get to Nepal? How do I get to Kathmandu to talk to these individuals. Do they speak English? Do they know what I need to know from them? And then it's not just Kathmandu. I also have to talk to someone in Chile. I have to talk to people in Italy. I have to talk to people in China, in Cuba, in Haiti. The World Bank serves a global audience. And so finding the individuals that were going to be using this product really mattered. And knowing where to look, who to go to, how to convince them to talk to me, that's tough. And in research, that's something that you have to figure out every day. You get a new project in, everybody has a very explicit use case of this is what I'm going to be designing, this is what I'm building, this is who I'm expecting to serve. Okay, so the next step is, okay, since you know who you're thinking that you're going to serve, let's make sure that that's accurate. And so we'll talk to those individuals, but finding them, that matters. And so sometimes those people are provided. So in the World Bank case, they had a list of individuals that we could talk to. They had a conference that we could go to. And we did that work of calling up. Well, I didn't get to fly there, unfortunately. Their budget was a lot smaller than most budgets pre-pandemic. And so I called them. I got them on the phone, got to talk to people in Chile who were downloading all of the Twitter emergencies to build a database to create a GED, or no, not GED. They were trying to understand how much, what was the GD, how much income and GDP? Yes, that. So they were trying to build a GDP for Chile. And it was really hard to do with government databases, but they could do it by pulling information out of the social media. And so they were using that within this software. Super fascinating. And I learned a great deal about how varied the type of software, or varied the information was that could go into the software, and what that meant then for what we were building. I also talked to a guy in Switzerland who liked moguls. So anytime that he would go skiing, he would document where he would go, the type of snow quality, the moisture in the air, the temperature, super weird stuff. And all of that went into a map that he could call up later whenever he wanted to go skiing again. Naturally. That's what we all do, right? You meet some of the most interesting people when you are willing to put yourself out there and ask silly questions. And so fortunately with the World Bank, this software was relatively easy to find people who were using it and understand what the challenges were. But sometimes finding the people is actually a much bigger challenge. And so I've got two different examples where it was very challenging. Well, actually, the city of San Diego, not so challenging. Everybody here, I could have talked to. But did you match the profile that I needed to better understand what San Diego meant to you and why you utilize the city's website and what you need from the city? And could you help me flesh out different paradigms that we needed to understand? Like the dog owner, the parent who was looking for the accessible playground for their disabled child, the person who's starting a brand new business. So all of those individuals we needed to find, and we also needed to understand their goals and their needs for this product. And then with LifeTech makes, or did make, these DNA sequencing machines. And at the time of the project, they were trying to position themselves to be sold, because there was maybe like 100 DNA sequencing companies in the world at that time. And none of 24andMe or 23andMe had yet to come out. And so in this instance, finding the lab tech was extremely difficult. We had to go through LinkedIn, and then when they didn't respond, we had to go through a professional organization, and when they didn't respond, we had to go through their PhD advisors, until we got to somebody who did this work and could talk to us about machines in their lab. And actually, maybe, can we come see your lab? And that's when we saw the mess. And you don't want to see those labs. But it was really interesting. They didn't like money. Money was crass. So you can't incentivize with like $500. You needed to incentivize with an iPad, something cool, something techy that set them apart from their peers, made them unique. And so one of the things that I like to do when I'm trying to figure out who am I going to talk to is I like to just take basic demographics. What do I know about this product? What do I know about the experience? And in defining who they are, what their challenges are, where they are at the moment that they're trying to use this product, it helps me better understand exactly who I need to invite into the study and why I need to talk to them. It also gets me started thinking about the questions that I have for them and how they might have a completely different use for this tool than the product owner or the product manager has described to me. And so I personify them. And in our space for accessibility, I also need to understand where's their ability spectrum? And what do I need to care about and why? And so understanding where your customer is on the spectrum and knowing if the actual issue is any one of these will help you better understand what types of questions, what types of problems they're going to run into when using your product. And in research, what do I need to talk to them about? And so there's a couple of other things that I do. I write out their customer journey. I try to better understand who they are using their vocabulary. And sometimes this means that I'm doing this after I talk to them, because that often gives you a lot more insight into who they are and what they do. And then I also like to describe some of their other behaviors, because this helps the designers, it helps the product managers really get into their mindset. Like, if you know that this person won't be caught dead stepping into, say, Target, then that changes what you're designing, what the feel, what the look is, what they're doing, what they're interested in. And so a couple different tips here. Definitely make sure that you know what the impairment is that you're looking at, because it's not just about being someone who's blind or someone who's deaf. Everybody's got a slightly different impairment, and it could be invisible to you. Microsoft has some really great tools out there, so if you haven't seen those tools, look them up. Ensure that when you're doing the research, it's not just the same homogeneous group in the room, that you're very explicit, that you're inclusive, and that you're bringing the enough breadth and depth of your potential audience into the room to have those conversations. And if they can't come to you, go to them. This evening I heard about someone who was always being pushed back when she was trying to get out into the field. And that challenge is real. So you've got business owners and managers who are really concerned about their project, their problem right now. And they're looking at a budget, they're looking at a time frame, and they're looking at how can we make this product be successful on day one, next week, when we ship it. Well, the problem is like, if you're not bringing or getting the right views, if you're not talking to the right people, it doesn't matter that you have a schedule to ship next week, because what you ship next week is garbage. So in some sense, this bottom one is probably going to be the hardest one to overcome in different agencies, different companies, but it's also the most important one. Because if you can get into the room with the right customers, you get the right insights, and the product is sticky. And having something that ships that's accurate and well-designed matters. Because you're no longer having to recreate it. It actually just works. Some of my colleagues were recommending that we do a lot more testing before you go out, especially if you're going to be using accessible tools that you may not have used before, or you're working with a population that you haven't worked with before. So test your protocols, test your tools, make sure that you understand how this works in multiple different ways, and then break it and see if you can recover. An example of this, a friend of mine works for San Diego Futures Foundation, which Lana definitely take a look at, because they help connect computers to people who need computers. And what they have people on staff who train individuals who are just coming back into the world after experiencing something life-altering, like losing your sight or losing a limb. And so they help retrain those individuals on technology and where the world is right now. And one of the things that they showed me is what happens when someone comes in who's got like impaired vision or has just turned blind. They're like, well, we turn off the apps and then we would walk them through how to like navigate their phone with the screen black. And when they have a designer that comes in to work with them on like trying to understand what are the challenges that someone who's blind have when they're working in online, they do the same thing, and they have a sighted designer work through their phone, not being able to see what's going on their phone, and just tabbing through it. It's really hard when you're not used to navigating that way to undo what you've just done. So I've broken a couple of phones that way. The other thing, definitely connect. As Lana was saying, get out there, meet your community. I live across from the Center for the Blind, but we've got San Diego Futures, we've got the UCSD, we've got a lot of really great organizations in town that you just have to ask. And I've found that even going to elder community centers, they're more than willing to have you come in, present, and then work with the people after. But getting out there and meeting your community matters.
Yeah, Harris will do an intro for you. Do you want to use this or do you want the clip on? Okay, cool.
All right. Next up, we have a Kaanohi, a user experience and interface designer here at Red Door Interactive. Has a passion for creating meaningful digital experiences. Kahevai leverages self-taught skills and formal education to deliver transformative design solutions across diverse domains, showcasing expertise in design systems, user interfaces, and accessibility. His talk is Harnessing Emerging Virtual and Augmented Realities to Improve Accessibility.
Thank you. So like mentioned, I'm a user experience and interface designer here at Red Door Interactive. I moved to San Diego end of May from Portland, Oregon, actually. And up there, I was a digital designer at an agency, primarily on the Adobe account. So I was working on all of their design systems and for their internal products as well. So ended up here as a user experience and interface designer. It's been super cool working on other clients. And It's actually inspired me to dive into this topic here. So, like mentioned, I'm going to be talking about. Can you fix it? Sorry, I clicked something. Sorry about that. There we go. I appreciate it. Alrighty. So yes, we're going to be looking into how we can harness emerging augmented and virtual realities to improve accessibility here in the physical world and in the digital world. So basic introduction on that topic is that we are looking to involve leveraging cutting edge technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality to create innovative solutions that enhance overall inclusivity and address accessibility challenges for individuals who have disabilities. With this type of technology, we're going to be bridging the gap between the digital world and the physical world like never before. The role of technology, so the current role that technology has is fostering more inclusive and accessible world. Sorry, my contacts. I'm like reading and like trying to memorize, so I apologize. I'm gonna just look here. Okay, so the current role that technology has is to foster a more inclusive and accessible world that involves innovations in digital accessibility, assistive technologies, telehealth, educational tools, social media for awareness, and smart city initiatives. That way, collectively, it enhances the quality of life for individuals with diverse needs and abilities. The areas that it will benefit within our lives, these, of course, it's going to benefit everything within our life, but some primary areas include education and training, overall healthcare, workplace collaboration, gaming and entertainment. There's a whole list there, and it can go on and on. So we basically, whatever you do here in the physical world will eventually, hopefully in a good way, be supported by augmented and virtual reality. So what are augmented and virtual reality? What does it mean? So virtual reality is a computer-generated immersive simulation of a three-dimensional environment, and it's experienced by users through a specialized hardware like headsets, as you can see here, providing a convincing and interactive digital reality. So I want to make sure that you understand that virtual reality, usually you're still able to see and interact with your physical realm. You just have the computer there to enhance your experience. Oh wait, no, I got them mixed up, sorry. Virtual reality is where it's completely 3D generated through a computer. So you're not really like seeing the real world around you, the physical realm. Whereas augmented reality, I was jumping ahead, otherwise known as AR, is technology that overlays digital information or computer-generated content onto the real-world environment. This enhances the user's perception and interactions with their surroundings. So again, you can interact with people, everything that's physically around you. We just have certain user interfaces that help us with our everyday life. So current challenges. So I want to point out what are current things that people find that they encounter challenges within the everyday. And there are 6 different topics that I'm going to touch on here. So first, mobility. If you haven't noticed, I use hand crutches, so I have a lot of experience with physical mobility and using hand crutches. So first, the inaccessible physical environments, lacking ramps, elevators, or proper pathways. Another way that mobility can be challenging is that there's limited public transportation options that can accommodate wheelchairs. And then lastly, there's a lot more to this, but what we're going to talk about tonight is lastly that websites and mobile apps are not always navigable for individuals that have motor impairments. From a sensory point of view, there's a lack of alternative formats for individuals with visual impairments, inadequate closed captioning or transcripts for videos, excluding those with hearing impairments. So something to keep in mind when someone's talking to you, some people have hearing impairments where they can't hear you even though you're right in front of them. So we want to keep that in mind when it comes to captioning and transcripting. And then lastly, for sensory, websites and applications that rely heavily on visual elements. So me as a designer, of course I want it to be beautiful and I want to catch your attention with all these visual implementations, but that's not accessible to someone who cannot see. So we want to make sure that we can accommodate and be accessible to them as well. From a cognitive point of view, there are very complex and unclear website layouts that pose challenges to people who don't think and learn like we do, or that the average person does. Secondly, there's a lack of simple language and easy to understand content on websites and in educational resources. And then there's also a lack of assistive technologies or tools that support individuals with learning disabilities. The last three topics I'm going to touch on, so communication. There's limited availability of sign language interpreters for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. So not everyone knows sign language, and you're of course not going to have an interpreter with you all the time. You can utilize your phone, but of course, for augmented reality has the potential in helping you in real time when interacting with people. From a technological point of view, where people can face challenges is that there's an incompatibility of assistive technologies with mainstream devices and softwares, because all of those mainstream softwares and devices are designed for the average person. They don't get into the nitty-gritty of how is this going to be accessible to everyone, especially if there are unique scenarios. Space, sorry. And then there's also a high cost associated with specialized assistive technologies, depending on what sort of device you're looking to use or need to use. And then lastly, social and environmental constraints. So there's a stigmatization and lack of awareness leading to social exclusion. There's inaccessible public spaces and events that hinder participation. And then there's discrimination in employment opportunities in workplaces. So how can we take those challenges and implement augmented reality and virtual reality to help with those, to help give people access to things that the average person has access to? So how can we apply virtual reality? And so as a reminder, this is the 3D rendered world where you're not really seeing the physical realm. So here are a couple of applications. I did list them. If you're interested in what one means, I did provide extra slides, assuming if you want access to the slides, I'm more than willing to share, of course. But I have slides where it'll go into some more detail on these topics. So first, mobility training. An example of that, I won't give an example for all of them, but with me having cerebral palsy, mobility training can be, virtual reality can be utilized in the sense that when I'm doing physical therapy, usually when I go to physical therapy, they give you a printed sheet on your exercises. And of course you can't have a video or someone there showing you all the time when I'm doing it at home. So, and this can be applied through augmented reality as well. They're mutually exclusive in some ways. So having that experience to where it'll show me what I'm supposed to do, so I don't have to get up from my exercise, grab the piece of paper, and do it. In the world, a perfect world, I might have some AI person in front of me that's projected in front of me, and I can work out with them. So it entices me to build my mobility within physical therapy. The other ones I'll just run through real quickly. So there's visual impairment support. We can do cognitive rehabilitation, language and communication support, virtual learning environments. We already got kind of a taste of that with COVID. Virtual in the sense that you're looking through a screen rather than in person. The sensory integration therapy, social skills training, pain management and distraction. This one was pretty cool because if you have an augmented reality with you, when people are in a lot of pain, that's the only thing you can think about. And so when you're put into another world and you can take your mind off of the pain that you're experiencing, that is a way that augmented reality can help with that type of management. And then the last three, virtual support groups. Maybe there's a barrier to get there physically, employment training, and then architectural. I told you I wasn't going to give you examples for all of them, but this one was pretty cool. Architectural accessibility assessments. So this is a way to do user testing for buildings before they're built. So when you have an augmented reality experience for a building that's about to go up, you can actually go through the building, hypothetically, and see how people can use and utilize your building. See, okay, if I go into here and you forgot to put a ramp in and you realize as you're physically experimenting with it through the augmented reality, you have just found a user pain point through this augmented reality. On the other hand, I meant virtual reality, augmented reality applications. So this list, again, provided at the end of the slide if you want more detail, but we can do real-time language translation. So this will be helpful when you travel the world. Let's say you're doing business. Of course, you're not only going to come in contact with English speakers. So having that real-time language translation is important. Navigation assistance, we're already seeing this on the map apps where you can scan where you're at and it'll kind of show you where to go. Object recognition and information overlay, augmented signage, public transportation navigation, interactive educational materials, AR glasses for low vision. So ideally, if you have low vision, of course you can get contacts, but if you need to zoom in, hypothetically, you could zoom in with a virtual reality type of UI. Workplace accommodations, accessible gaming, interactive museums and exhibits. Social interaction support, this one is cool because let's say you have social anxiety and you have this little UI here, and assuming it's connected to AI and we have that type of technology, it can give you hints as to, okay, you should do this as you interact with this person, kind of being there as like your coach. And then the last two, accessible retail experiences, and then customizable visual aids. So what are some potential limitations when you consider augmented reality and virtual reality? First is the lack of diversity. It's so new right now as technology. Apple hasn't fully released their headset. Once they come out with that, of course, we've had other companies already in that realm with Meta. But when Apple comes out, that's just going to validate this industry, and that's when it's really going to start. So since we're at the beginning, we're basically at like iPhone 1 level with augmented and virtual reality. We have lack of diversity in it. So with that lack of diversity and representation with VR and AR, accessibility users and creators, with a lack of them, it can lead to biased and exclusive perspectives. A lack of standards. So there's currently a lack of universal and comprehensive standards and guidelines. We just don't have access to the VR and AR, so it's hard to like create those standards without having experiencing it. And this is supported, so the lack of standards is supported by the lack of diversity within the creation of this technology as of right now. And then considering the trade-off between immersion and usability, and then also in supporting lack of standards is that there's a lot of technical and financial limitations. For lack of awareness, there's a lack of awareness and knowledge of AR and VR accessibility amongst users, creators, and providers, and this can lead to low demand, supply, and quality of solutions. Additionally, there's a lack of evaluation and validation of the overall accessibility within AR and VR, which can lead to insufficient evidence and feedback for overall improvement. And then lastly, there's a lack of regulation. So the good thing, though, is we've had a digital realm within our lives, and we've been able to create standards and regulations around them, around the web. So of course, there isn't a complete lack of regulation when it comes to this sort of design and implementation, but we at least have a grounding for it. We just don't have anything like very specific yet towards AR and VR utilization. So what are some future trends that we're seeing? So we're already seeing that there's an integration with 5G, so we're gonna have faster connection and processing. We have continued growth in enterprise adoption, advances in hardware, AR in smart glasses, healthcare applications, immersive e-commerce, education and training solutions, and then social augmented reality experiences, spatial computing, AR cloud development, and then gaming and entertainment evolution, and AI integration. And the cool thing is we are experiencing AI and its potential, and so as that grows, we'll be able to see it integrate into not only our screen digital interfaces, but these AR and VR interfaces. So what are some ethical considerations that we should be thinking about as we approach this new industry? So privacy concerns, we want to make sure that we acknowledge data collection and informed consent. We want to make sure there's accurate representation, so diverse user groups, avoiding stereotyping. We want to consider accessibility by design. So we want to have a universal design. We want to have universal design principles and then do user testing, of course. User safety, this does integrate with the physical realm as well as the digital realm. So we want to make sure that there's physical safety. We also want to avoid disorientation. When you start to interfere with someone's visuals, we want to make sure that they're safe no matter what they're using. Transparency and trust, we want to make sure there's clarity and communication. We also want to be transparent about what our limitations are. Ethical use of AI, we're already starting to see and question that, so making sure that's fair and inclusive. when it comes to algorithms, and then avoiding discrimination. Long-term impact, we want to, I don't know if it's avoidable completely, but we want to avoid dependency. We already see it within our phones and devices, but when you add it to your everyday experience 24/7, we just want to be mindful of that dependency. And then lastly, collaboration. We want to make sure that we involve all stakeholders and then also listen to users and make sure that they're integrated into that development. So how can you get involved? There's not a ton going on right now, but I pulled these resources. LinkedIn had a pretty cool article. I linked it here at the bottom. They had suggested you could get access to the XR Access Network. So it's a network of people basically who are looking to create these standards for user experience and, or not user experience, AR and VR. And then XR Access Symposium is a 1.5-day convention where they basically look at these technological advancements to make a virtual and augmented. And there's also a phrase called mixed reality, more accessible with people with disabilities. And of course, I forgot to mention this earlier, but whenever we solve issues for disabled people, it's going to help people who are abled as well. I mean, I've heard examples like elevators, ramps. There's just so many things we already use day to day that help disabled people, that help everyone in the end. And then lastly, on how to get involved, XR Access Awards. So they celebrate achievements by extended reality vendors for over the past 12 months, and they showcase visionaries who redefine technology around the world. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thanks to all our great speakers tonight. Let's see. I think we are welcome here for another 20 minutes, half hour or so. So hang out and network and meet people. And Nathan will kick us out when it's time to go. So thanks everybody for coming. And yeah, question. Yes, give us maybe a week or so. We'll post them on the website. We've also been recording this, so we'll put that up too. And yeah. Thank you.
That website is a11ySD.com.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, I just had a question for the group. Again, my name is Franny. I'm currently working on a project involving DEI for our organization, and I'm curious to know if any of you have any perspectives on combating bias and discrimination in daily use of AI in marketing or in your work. Specifically, any tools, any prompts that you guys might be using. Come find me if you have any ideas, but I don't know where to start, so plead for help. Thank you.